Hi there, I'm Austin Robin, aka Ms ComPlexiTieS, the host of ComPlexiTieS Podcast. ComPlexiTieS Podcast, if you don't know, was a 33 episode podcast that I did with my ex-husband. We're not going to count the 34th episode because it was mostly just us arguing. But this is something new. Come to find out, I'm not an audio engineer. I didn't get my audio engineering degree in the divorce. My ex-husband did. There's been a lot of stuff that has held me back from continuing the podcast. Our last podcast was over a year ago, and I hate that it's taken me this long to finally get it together. But I'm going to explain why. I'm going to explain what's going on with my life now, and we're going to listen to this great music that may or may not be playing on a boombox. Just saying. It's a great intro, right? So, for those of you who didn't run away from this intro, this is me taking on a whole new kind of beast because I am not capable of podcasting on my own. I don't know how to work the software. I don't have a microphone. I don't know how to plug the microphone into the device that there's so many things. Like, I am not an audio engineer. And I want to tell you, and I wanted to be able to, by now, over a year later, wow our trillions of listeners with the fact that, hey, I fucking learned how to engineer audio. Didn't happen. What I do know how to do is sit in front of my camera and talk. Because that's exactly what I did on the podcast. I sat in front of my mic and I talked. And that is who I am as a person. And that is who I am and what I'm supposed to do. I loved podcasting. I loved making vlogs when I was going through the divorce and I didn't have my mic set up and I didn't even really have a house or a place to podcast. Most of those vlogs were done in my car because I didn't have anything else. So I realized today and over the last few months that this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. I have my story, pure unadulterated me, my words, and my voice. And that's what matters. That's what the podcast was about. It was about my story. It was about healing. It was about recovery. It was about raising awareness and helping people find their own path to the light at the end of the tunnel, to their own path to their best self. And I'm not some self-help guru. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. There's thousands of people on YouTube and on podcasts that are doing that. What sets me apart and what makes me Ms ComPlexiTieS is that I'm the survivor of 28 years of abuse. I've been in recovery from ComplexPTSD for 7 years now, and everything that I share comes from that lens. Everything comes from the perspective of a trauma survivor, a brain and a mind and a spirit that has been warped and changed through trauma. I talk real talk. I'm not going to give you a list of things like roll on your incense and shine your crystals and meditate every day. Like, I listen to people who say stuff like that on the internet, and I think they're great and they're motivating, but that's not who I am. That's not what I do. That's not what I go through. As a trauma survivor and as somebody with complex PTSD, my only goal since becoming a mental health advocate, when did the podcast start? It started in May or June 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, I'm really great with numbers. Just like audio engineering, I'm really great with that too. So my whole purpose, my whole vision for why I wanted to become a mental health advocate was to share what I know, to share what I've experienced, and to share the things that have helped me. The therapy that I've gone through, that I've had access to, the amount of therapy and different types of healing modalities that I've worked my way through in the last 7 years is something that not everyone has access to, and that's why I podcast. I also, less so now, but more so 7 years ago when I got my diagnosis, there was nobody talking about complex PTSD. There were no resources. It was very hard to find anyone who even knew what complex PTSD was. And today, there are more people talking about it, and there are more people who have differing opinions, and there's a lot of tension around what it is, how we get it, and how we fix it or heal it. And I'm going to go into that further. But right now in this video, all I'm trying to say and set up is who I am and why I'm doing this. And welcome forking back to the podcast, because this isn't a podcast, but probably got to call it a podcast because that's what I'm used to doing. It feels really good to be back. It feels really good to express myself and the things that I feel called to share. The things that I've learned, the things that have helped me, the really shitty, in the deep trenches of depression and anger and all the stuff that goes into dealing with complex PTSD. It was undoubtedly ramped up by going through my divorce. So, February of 2019, I told my ex-husband and my podcasting partner that I couldn't be in a relationship with him anymore. It wasn't working. I couldn't do the work that I needed to do to heal and to be my happy, authentic self while being in a relationship with him. And you can see how that unfolded, or you can hear how that unfolded in the last couple episodes of ComPlexiTieS Podcast on all the major platforms. I find that it's easiest to find it on Spreaker. Didn't even know what Spreaker was, but we're there. So I blew up my 9-year marriage. I blew it up because it wasn't right for my recovery. It was not fulfilling my needs. It wasn't fulfilling my desires, my wants. It was not fulfilling me. We'll put it that way. And I know that it wasn't fulfilling him too. And I know that there was someone out there better for him than me. And I knew that for a couple of years. And that was what was so hard. It was like, I know that we're not happy as people. It's not that we're not happy together. It's that we're not happy as people, individuals. So when we come together, there are these lacking components, right? And so we just weren't happy in our life, so we couldn't be happy in our life together. Everything unfolded as divorces do. Terribly painful, terribly horrible, terribly expensive, terrible pain in the butt, lots of suffering. I pretty much lost everything. You know, I said I don't want the house, and I moved out with nothing except for my books and my clothes. I took a mattress that I bought off Craigslist, or no, it was Facebook. Anyway, I had to rebuild my whole life. And for a long time, I had nothing. I was renting a room and spending most of my time at work and in my car and seeing my kids during the day. And I think that was the absolute hardest part of my divorce, was not being that caregiver for my children, because most of my marriage, my ex-husband was away with the Navy, or he was at work for 8 to 15 hours a day, and I was the one with the kids, and I was the one that ran the house. And then I didn't have a house. And then it's not that I lost the kids, it's just that they weren't sleeping with me because I couldn't afford a place for all of us. So I would go to them at their house with their dad, and then I would take them to school, and over the summer I would spend the days with them while he was at work. And I think so many people who get divorced, and this is the purpose of this video or episode, so many people stay in an unhappy marriage, an unhappy partnership, an unhappy job, an unhappy family situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be your partner, your husband, your wife, your kids, whatever. It could even be, you know, you're living with your parents who are abusive. You're living with whoever. You're still answering that phone when these abusive family members or friends call you. And for whatever reason, we stay. We stay and we continue to be abused. And I'm not saying that my ex-husband abused me. I'm saying that being in a relationship with my ex-husband prevented me from healing. It didn't meet my needs, and it didn't allow me to grow into the best version of myself. So if your friend came to you and said, oh, I'm in this job or this relationship, or my parents, I can't express myself fully. I feel alone in the relationship or the partnership, or when I'm in this big group of people at work, I just feel so unheard and unwanted. None of us would say stay. It'll work out. People will change and they will learn to take care of you and love you and support you, and it'll all work out. No, nobody would ever say that to someone they care about. I'm talking about extreme situations. There may be exceptions where couples, families can go to therapy and work on their problems. Full disclosure, my ex-husband and I, we had been working on our marriage for 5 years. I wanted to divorce him 5 years before I did. And I agreed in therapy to keep working on it. And I didn't feel like after 2.5 years of working on it that he was meeting me halfway. So I had to cut ties. I had to ultimately decide that our family, my health, my sanity, my well-being, his health and well-being, right? Whatever, his probably his wealth too, our wealth, divide and conquer, right? It's all better when we're not together. And I know that's like so fucking counterintuitive. It's like I just keep thinking about these people who are in a marriage and they get divorced, as soon as their kids turn 18. And I was there. I thought about it. I said, you know what? I only have like 11 years, 10 years. I can stick it out until my kids leave. I can sacrifice my wants, my needs, my desires, my well-being, my sanity, so that my kids don't have to be children of divorce. I can sacrifice everything that makes me happy and feel loved and wanted so that I don't rock the boat, because so many of us, especially trauma survivors, they don't want to rock the boat. There's 1,000 forking excuses to stay in contact with the abusive parent, to stay in the abusive toxic relationship, to stay in a job or a relationship that isn't meeting your needs. When I started my recovery, and even 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't know what my needs were. I didn't even know that I had needs. I didn't know that the reason I was feeling triggered was because my needs weren't being met. So when I started understanding that when I didn't feel safe, or when I didn't feel connected or wanted or loved or appreciated, then I would get triggered and I would go into these fight or flight symptoms. And then it started making sense. Okay, my needs weren't met as a child. I was neglected. I was abandoned. I was psychologically and emotionally brainwashed. I was lied to by my family my entire life. My needs were the farthest thing from what they gave me. They didn't fulfill any of my needs, except for maybe barely keeping me alive. So in my marriage, in a relationship with a partner, we have all these needs, whether it be, I need to feel heard, I need to feel accepted, I need to feel connected, I need to feel safe, I need to feel encouraged. If the relationship isn't meeting your needs, you don't need to be there. And I spent 5 extra years in my marriage not having my needs met, because that is the cycle. That is my cycle of abuse. That is my complex PTSD playing out in my marriage, right? So because of all the trauma, because of the conditioning of my brain to put my needs on the back burner or on a different freaking stove, I just stayed in this situation that was unhappy. Yes, I cut out most of my family. There's an episode about that where I have no contact with 98% of my family. I don't talk to the people that abuse me. I don't. That's a fucking rule that I set myself. That is a boundary, a hard line that I drew in the sand. I drew that line a little over, almost 4 years ago, when I completely cut out all of my abusive family, all the family that betrayed me and lied to me. And every time I spoke to them, I was afraid that they were going to drop some sort of emotional bomb that was going to destroy my psyche. I couldn't talk to them anymore because I was scared that every interaction was going to leave me hurt. And I realized that was the same part of my marriage. That is exactly what was happening in my marriage. Every interaction with my ex-husband left me feeling hurt and broken and unhappy. But I stayed. I stayed because I was broke. I stayed because I gave him 10 years of my life and I had no marketable skills. I stayed because we had children. I stayed because I didn't think that I was capable of living without him. I didn't think I was capable of living on my own. So, why am I saying this? Why is this video on YouTube? This video is here and I am sending these words out to you. If you are in a situation that isn't meeting your needs, that isn't healthy, that is abusive, that is toxic, that is making you unhappy, then you need to reevaluate and you need to find the path forward, the path that is going to lead to you meeting your needs, to you being your best and most healthiest self. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard. I spent a year not having my children in my home. I spent a year not really having a home, just renting a bedroom, sharing a studio apartment with somebody and their cat. I did all of this for myself so that I could move past all of the trauma, all of the abuse cycles. You know, my marriage wasn't particularly abusive, but it wasn't conducive to healing. It was preventing my healing. And at the end of the day, some people might say, well, choosing yourself is selfish. And I will be completely honest, most of my life, I thought that any time that I was going to meet one of my needs, I was being selfish. But do you want to know who told me and made me believe that that was selfish? It was the people who were abusing me. The people who didn't want me to have boundaries and to have my needs met. Because when they weren't meeting my needs and controlling me, they could just be whoever they want. They could be the narcissist hurting me. But as an empowered survivor, I know what my boundaries and my needs are. And the moment that I say, I need you out of my life, I need this toxicity to stop, that is the moment that you as a survivor, not a victim, a survivor, that is the moment that you step into your power, you step into your recovery, and you step into the next chapter of your life, the chapter of healing and the beginning of the end of your abuse cycle. I just hit the 7-year mark of being in recovery. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not gone. I'm not fixed, right? ComplexPTSD has the word complex in it because it's not fucking easy. It's not something that you just take a pill and it goes away, or you take 3 months of therapy sessions and it's gone. I did 5 years of therapy sessions. I was in the hospital twice for a total of 18 months. And I'm still every day working to combat all of the trauma, all of the conditioning that my abusers just pushed into my brain. But I'm still here and I'm still fighting. So, if you're fighting, if you are in a situation where your needs aren't being met, where it's unsafe for you, please find a way out. You are worthy of that way out. You deserve your needs to be met. You deserve happiness. You deserve a place that you can recover. And if there's anything I can do, please reach out. I will link resources below for domestic abuse, violence, and anything else I can find resource-wise to help people. But please, get out. You're worthy of getting out. I don't know how many times in my life I felt like I've had to get out and get away, but there were two big times. When I was 17, I ran away. I ran away from my dad, who was a narcissist, who made me hate myself, who made me believe that I was unworthy of love and anything. He made me believe that I was a worthless piece of shit. And I realized if I don't leave, I'm gonna kill myself. I can't live like this. And ultimately, it happened again. My ex-husband didn't make me think that I was unworthy. He wasn't a horrible person. He wasn't a narcissist. But he also wasn't conducive for my healing. We weren't compatible. And I had to get out. And I will tell you, it was the best decision I've ever made. Leaving my abusive father and getting out of my marriage. Both very difficult things. Both left me broke and spending a lot of time in my car. Both counter to everything that I feel I should be doing in my life. But getting away, ending the abuse cycles, and finding that space in my life where I can feel worthy again, I can work on my recovery, that's what matters. That's what will meet your needs. So it is my only wish that this episode of ComPlexiTieS Podcast, or the Search for Ms ComPlexiTieS, where I melt my blog, The Search for Peace, to the podcast stuff. I'm calling it The Search for Ms ComPlexiTieS. It's a joke because my website's called The Search for Peace, and I'm Ms ComPlexiTieS, and I've been MIA for a really long time. I thought it was funny. You don't have to think so. It's okay. So, this is The Search for Ms ComPlexiTieS, and this is what I'm sharing with you guys. I'm sharing pure, unadulterated me. I'm sharing my experience, my story, and my words, because that's all that I have to offer. And I believe, I don't have to believe it. I know, because so many of you guys reached out to me. So many people since I started the podcast have sent me messages or contacted me on Instagram and have said, the podcast changed my life, or the thing that you said was like a light bulb that went off. And that's why I do this. I don't really want to be on camera. I feel kind of stupid, honestly. But I want to share, and I want to be that catalyst. I want to open up people's minds and hearts to this idea that just because you have been through trauma doesn't mean you're broken. Just because you have complex PTSD or PTSD, or maybe you don't even know what those things are, but you've experienced some kind of trauma and it is still hindering you. Maybe you don't understand why you get angry whenever you hear somebody chewing in your ear. Maybe you don't know why fireworks make you so on edge and everybody else is enjoying it. Everybody's gone through trauma. We all have, to varying degrees. Mine is way more severe than most people's. But that's why I do it. Because if I, in 7 years, can get to this point where I actually enjoyed fireworks this year, or there's just so much in my recovery that I'm grateful for. And if I, of all people, can get this far, then maybe the things that I've learned and the things that I'm saying will help you too. And that is my goal. So I look forward to our next YouTube podcast, The Search for Ms ComPlexiTieS, me trying to learn how to use technology.